Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all. Welcome to our Zoom worship service this Sunday, January 17th. Now, we're going to begin our service by acknowledging that the land on which our homes and our church and our yellow house were built was not uninhabited when European settlers arrived here with their ideas of conquest and ownership. For those of us who live in Moscow, Pullman, or other nearby communities, we live on the ancestral homelands of the Nimipu, called Nez Perce by the French-speaking traders, the Palouse, and the Shitshumsh, called the Coeur d'Alene. If you're joining us from another place, I encourage you to discover who inhabited or moved through the place where you now live in the times before colonization and genocide, and also look into where they are now. We pause and remember that we live on ground that is sacred. We live on ground that was stolen. We live on ground that cries out for justice and responsible stewardship. May our remembering help us find the courage to do our part to restore wholeness to the earth and all her peoples. And now let's join our voices together for our words of welcome, our unison chalice lighting, and our sung affirmation. So say this with me. Whoever you are, wherever you've come from, whatever your beliefs, whomever you love, and however bumpy your life's journey, know that you are welcome here. And then we're hoping that everyone has a chalice or a candle to light and something to light it with, and let's light them all together.
Hi, I'm David Nelson.
I'm Nancy Nelson.
And I'm Kate Nelson.
In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share. From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung in every land by every tongue.
So this morning, in honor of tomorrow's holiday, we'll be celebrating the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we'll do that by reflecting on some lessons offered up by his friend, his dear friend, and his comrade in arms, Congressman John Lewis, the late Congressman John Lewis. Now, it may be that someday we'll have a separate national holiday for John Lewis, but for now, I'm choosing to spotlight his words and his work because he gives us a lot of insight as to how to stay in the struggle. Until the day he died, he did everything he could to carry King's legacy forward. Now we're living in chaotic and troubling times. We just witnessed an incredibly brazen display of white supremacy at the Capitol building. And so I imagine, like many of you, I've been asking myself, what are we supposed to do now? What do we do? I found the answer in part in an email sent out by the president of the UUA, Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, and she wrote, "Our leaders at UU The Vote and our movement partners are asking people to stay home, stay safe, and continue to call your elected officials to demand accountability for the attacks on democracy. In addition, let's continue to develop the skills and relationships we need to keep organizing for justice, equity, and democracy." In other words, we need to stay safe, but we also need to stay in the struggle. We need to keep doing the hard internal work of deconstructing racism in our own psyches and our own hearts. And we need to use this time to gather our courage so that we can confront racism in our society with courage and with greater skill. My hope is that Congressman Lewis's lessons will help us become better anti-racists. To gather our spirits together, let's join in singing "Woke Up This Morning."
up this morning with my mind.
And it was
Stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Hallelujah. 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 I was walking and talking with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Hallelujah. 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 I was singing and praying with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Singing and praying with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Singing and praying with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Hallelujah. 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 Oh, I woke up this morning with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Hallelujah. 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 We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
In his memoir, Across That Bridge, Congressman John Lewis has a lot of wisdom to offer, and he offers it to us in the shape of 7 lessons. And, given that Martin Luther King Day this year is coming hard on the heels of that brazen display of white supremacy, I feel like we have 2 choices. We can give up and give in to despair, or we can double down. As Unitarian Universalists, the struggle for collective liberation is at the heart of our shared faith. So we really have no choice but to double down, to go with option number 2. So there's great clarity for me there. Now, the 7 lessons that Congressman Lewis offers us to hold as we stay committed to the struggle are these: keep the faith, be patient, study, stay devoted to the truth, act, be dedicated to peace, and above all, live with love. So for each of these lessons, I'm going to share an excerpt or 2 from his memoir, give just a few thoughts maybe for contextualization, and then I'll offer a question for us to hold as we move forward in the struggle together. So let's begin with first, which is keep the faith. When asked the question of how he did it, when people, and he said people asked him over and over and over again, how did you do it? How did you keep going in the face of violence, discrimination, in face of tragedy, the beatings and the bombings, the assassination of people who are legends or historical figures to us, but were friends for Congressman Lewis? Congressman Lewis's answer is simply faith. Now, what does he mean by faith? He's a Christian, so a lot of his faith is worded in those terms, but truly it translates beautifully to our context as well. So this is from his memoir, Across That Bridge. Faith is being so sure of what the Spirit has whispered in your heart that your belief in its eventuality is unshakable. Nothing can make you doubt that what you have heard will become a reality. Even if you do not live to see it come to pass, you know without one doubt that it will be. That is faith. So if we think about the music we just heard, we shall overcome. Deep in my heart, I do believe that truth, that we're going to overcome this, that the struggle will eventually be successful. That's what he's talking about. And we've got to hold on to that faith as we move forward. My colleague, Jason Shelton, if I had had time, he posted this morning a video of himself singing a hymn that he wrote just a couple years ago for the installation of our friend Cecilia Kingman at the UU Church in Edmonds. And the name of the hymn is Love Has Already Won. You know, even as we're facing these storms, even as we're seeing the disruption and the ugliness, we can know that they're temper tantrums, that the eventuality, that we know for sure that the vision of beloved community will someday be more than a vision, will be a completely realized reality. That's what we hold on to. So here's another quote from Lewis. We believed, and he's talking here about the cohort of civil rights activists. We believed that if we are all children of the same Creator, then discrimination had to be an error, a misconception based on faulty logic. The idea that some people were inherently better was a delusion of the human ego, a distortion of the truth. We asserted our right to human dignity based on a solid faith in our divine heritage that linked us to every other human being. This unity was an intrinsic, inseparable part of our being. We had nothing to prove. Our worth had already been established before we were born. Beloveds, we share this faith. It's right there in the inherent worth and dignity of all people, in the interconnected web of all life. So when it is hard, when other people's behavior is harmful or hateful, in those moments when we doubt our own goodness, our own inherent worth and dignity, how do we come back to that sense of unity and universal worth? How do we come back to that deep faith? And this is the question that I'd invite us to hold. When we lose faith in the goodness of humanity, how do we come back to our sense of unity and universal worth? The second lesson that Congressman Lewis offered us is about patience. He writes, contrary to popular thought, waiting can involve more than defeatist, wishful thinking. It can actually be a pragmatic and realistic catalyst for change. Why? Because it takes our limitations into account. Waiting acknowledges that we are not prime movers in all things. It concedes that there are some factors that lie beyond our control. Lewis talks about patience as deliberate decisions made in the movement, a deliberate decision to understand waiting is a valid strategic option. He talks about working the process, taking it step by step. And he lifts up another great song, Step by Step, the Longest March, shall be won, shall be won. Lewis also reminds us of how long it's likely to take writing. Ours is not the struggle of one day, 1 week, or 1 year. Ours is not the struggle of one judicial appointment or presidential term. Ours is the struggle of a lifetime, or maybe even many lifetimes. And each one of us in every generation must do our part. And if we believe in the change we seek, then it is easy to commit to doing all we can, because the responsibility is ours alone to build a better society and a more peaceful world. So the question we might hold with regards to patience is this one. How do we know when to wait and when to act? Let's reflect on that question and also the first question as we listen to the Resistance Revival Chorus share Ella's song.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Until the killing of black men, black mothers, sons is as important as the killing of white men, white mothers, sons. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Not needing to clutch for power, not needing the light just to shine on me. I need to be just one in the number as we stand against tyranny. To me, young people come first. They come first. They have the courage where we fail. If I can just shine a light on as they carry us through the gale. We who believe in freedom cannot rest.
cannot rest until it comes. Lewis's next lesson that he offers up is on the importance of study. He writes, "We did not just wake up one day and decide to march on Washington or from Selma to Montgomery. We studied, we strategized, we organized, trained, and prepared to take action. Most of what we accomplished grew out of years, decades, and even centuries of groundwork that was laid before most of us were even born. And those at the center of the struggle studied that history and used its wisdom to develop the strategic actions of the movement. From the legacy left by past generations, we gained a significant understanding of how we should forge ahead. It is only through examining history that you become aware of where you stand within the continuum of change." Now, as Unitarian Universalists, we are a community of lifelong learners. And even in my lifetime, I've seen our understandings of racism, anti-racism, and the strategies for deconstructing white supremacy within ourselves and combating it, standing up to it in the world, that these strategies, these understandings, they're constantly evolving. What this means is that we don't ever get to be experts. I see three practices that are essential to being lifelong learners in this particular on this particular subject. One is that we need to listen carefully to the people at the center of the struggle, those who hold marginalized identities. What we're asked to be is good followers, not necessarily good leaders. And being good followers is really about being good listeners. We have to value the lived experiences of those who are being or have been oppressed. At the same time, we can never doubt that we have a role to play. Often on Martin Luther King Sunday, I share the words, Martin Luther King's condemnation of white liberals from his letter in the Birmingham jail. The white liberals of his times disappointed him deeply by being too wishy-washy. And today it's only too clear where wishy-washy gets us. So we've got to stay in the struggle. We've got to keep studying. We've got to keep learning. I feel like I've been studying racial justice for most of my life, certainly for my entire career. And yet, just the racial justice book group that Nancy Nelson has been leading, I've been reading along as best I can with the selections there, and I have learned so much. So we've just got to keep going. We got to keep learning. We don't get to say we're done. We don't get to say, oh, I did that last year. We don't get to say, I did that back in the 70s. I've moved on. We have to keep in the struggle of studying and learning and paying attention to developments as they evolve. So the question that I'd invite us all to hold is this: what do we already know about the history of oppression and resistance to oppression in this country? And what do we still have to learn? We hold this question as we move forward together in the struggle. The next lesson that Lewis gives us is about truth. He writes, "The truth is a powerful force. It is the foundation of all things. The truth is so all-consuming that it cannot be denied. You cannot erase the truth. You cannot tarnish the truth. It is bigger than the sum of all of us, and whole even in its parts." He continues, "And yet, even though the truth can't be denied or erased, it can be systematically obscured, strategically misinterpreted, and hidden from mainstream comprehension. Our faith in the movement was that we could peel back the falsehood of all our conditioning, scrape away the hard, crusty cynicism of our politics, and peer through to the root of social dysfunction. That journey beyond the limits of normal discourse would lead to the central, simple principles of life based on the unfathomable, massive bedrock of the truth." one of the challenges in finding a way forward in the struggle in these particular times is that there isn't consensus when it comes to what the truth is. Sources tend to be unreliable and biased in one direction or the other, and memes on social media seem to carry as much weight with some folks as well-researched news pieces. We are, the pundits have said, in a post-truth era. And so I think it's more important than ever that we are diligent about fact-checking, about choosing responsible sources. The sad fact is that no matter how careful we are, we're going to be accused of being led astray by fake news. And so coming to agreement on what is truth in sort of the public sphere is probably not the path forward. There's a kind of truth, though, that lies underneath what we're served up by the media, and that is personal stories, the sharing of direct experience. I don't think we're going to get anywhere good arguing about facts, especially online. What's going to get us moving forward in this struggle is listening and speaking and finding common ground in the lived truth of people's stories. It's grassroots activism that's needed, meeting people face to face, identifying shared values, and talking about the impacts of a particular challenge, whether it's climate change or racism or the lack of health insurance. I look at the success of the campaign for Medicaid expansion here in Idaho as an example of how this can work. It's really hard to hate people face to face. And so the struggle takes place face to face, heart to heart. So the question I'd invite us to hold going forward is, how do we recognize and how do we share these deep truths of our lived experience? The next lesson Lewis offers us is the need to act. He writes, "The need to humanize an issue is critical to every movement. In activism, try to aim your most powerful action at the emotional resistance held in the heart, the beliefs that lead people to view a human problem as though it were alien. As yourself, what action or series of actions you could design that would unravel this hardened thinking for those who hold those notions. Put yourself in their shoes, or survey their attitudes to try to understand why people are so defensive and fearful of having their guns taken away, for example, or why they choose to vote against their own interest. Once you comprehend how they think and feel, it's easier to come up with an approach that helps them see the human face of an issue." So the context where we all live, this context, is sometimes tricky to figure out what action might make strategic sense. We here on the Palouse live in an overwhelmingly white place. We're purple dots in a pretty reddish sea. And there's a lot that we do. We help our neighbors through the month of Sundays and through other fundraising efforts. We serve on commissions. We volunteer with nonprofit organizations. In terms of shifting policies, which is Lewis's focus as a congressman, I'm thinking of several initiatives that I've witnessed move forward just in the time I've been here, adding language of sexual and gender identity to our local non-discrimination laws, shifting Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, the change to have gender-neutral bathrooms available. You know, and I think one of the dangers is sort of a scattershot approach, because we care about a lot of different issues. But if we want to have an impact, we need to choose a focus. A few years ago, I did a service on the Big Tangled Ball. Do you remember that? And we talked about how all of the issues were overlapping and intertwined like a big tangled ball of yarn, and that we each need to find a particular thread to tug on. We each need to choose an issue or two and tug on that particular thread. So this is Lewis again. When you protest or take action against entrenched forces of the status quo, you must be aware that action will be taken to oppose you or undermine your movement. Once you take these actions, you cannot turn back. You must be prepared. Build alliances and coalitions. Do not just jump out there on your own. Consider contingencies. Examine every possible outcome. And plan all the steps needed to bring about change. So grasp the thread, pull the thread, follow the thread through, and expect the resistance, and untangle those knots. The question that I'd invite you to hold on this section is, what is the one small action that I feel called to take? And let's hold that question and the previous one as we listen to Let Justice Roll Down.
Morally, I was led to nonviolence because I felt that it was the best moral way to deal with the problem. We were seeking to establish a just society, and it was my feeling then, and it is my feeling now, that violence is certainly much more socially destructive, and it creates many more social problems than it solves. So I was led to nonviolence for deep moral reasons. And I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
There is no freedom, the wise man said, let justice roll down when the poor cry out for shelter and bread. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Hatred will never drive out hate. Let love roll down, roll down. Remember, our hearts can make us great. Let love roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let your love roll down like a mighty stream. When brutality threatens our daughters and sons, let peace roll down, roll down. May our voices rise up louder than the guns. Let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Step by step, one by one, let justice roll down, roll down. They can kill the prophet, but the dream lives on. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream.
I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
Lewis has this to say about the sixth lesson, peace. What is it about our psyche or makeup as human beings that invites us to project our fear upon one another, justify abuse to relieve our own anxieties, and then demonize the object of our ridicule? It is so strange to me that we've learned to fly in the air like birds, learned to swim in the ocean like fish, shoot a rocket to the moon, but we've not yet learned how to live together in harmony with one another. If only we had a clear answer to this question, sort of a magic answer that could switch it all at once. One theory that I hold is that our awareness of the unity King and Lewis describe is at odds with our biological evolutionary status as tribal omnivores, which is to say that everyone knows, without exception on some level, that peace is possible and that all human beings have inherent worth and dignity and deserve to be treated with kindness and compassion. But to the extent that we feel afraid, to the extent that we're living with a sense of scarcity or inadequacy, we have a need that comes up, a biological need, to look out for our own tribe above all others. And then we look for scapegoats, for people to blame. We get trapped in the fear response, that fight, flight, freeze, fawn that I've been talking about so much. Or we get trapped in our shame response, which I think points to the roots of classism. And with regard to the partisan divide that we're working with right now, this second issue seems particularly relevant. For people who are struggling financially because their way of life is shifting, I think feelings of shame come up. In this country, we've culturally equated poverty with moral weakness. There's this weirdness about money that permeates everything, and it's incredibly uncomfortable. And because it's uncomfortable, shame is just a very uncomfortable emotion. There's this desire, this tendency to blame the other, to blame Black and brown people, to blame immigrants for that discomfort, for that feeling of shame. And it's easier to blame than it is to be honest about our struggles and to face the loss and the change that life is requiring. Lewis writes, I ask you to reach down inside yourself and find the truth your life is compelling you to see. What is your road to true peace? That is your road to true peace, and it is the beginning of the evolution of humankind, because every change in the world starts within. So let's hold that question. What is the truth our lives are compelling us to see? What is our road to true peace? Last but not least, Congressman Lewis offers up love, writing, I know today that there is a power, a force that can never be corrupted or defiled, and that power is love. Roots of love nurtured by a river of faith are a sure protection against many dangers, even the power of military might. And I say this not as an idealist who speaks in poetry and platitudes, but as a realist who has faced an army of weapons drawn against me, with love as my only defense. Lewis grew up in the segregated South. He walked the bridge on Bloody Sunday. He faced the dogs and the guns, and he still believes in the power of love. Who are we to believe otherwise? My favorite quote from Martin Luther King is this one: what is needed is a realization that power without love is reckless and abusive, and that love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. Justice at its best is love correcting everything that stands against love. Could it really be that simple? Love for self, love for family and friends, love for strangers, love for the other, love for country, love for the world. It's beloved community. Josiah Royce talks about loyalty, to the concept of loyalty, and this is in the creation of beloved community. And it's this commitment, this faith to this ideal of unity. What we're talking about here is love for love's sake. So this last question that I invite you to hold is perhaps the most important of all. And we can ask it of ourselves over and over again in every moment of every day. What is the most loving thing I can do in this moment? So be it, and so may it be. Let's sing together now. We shall overcome.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we'll walk hand in hand someday. We shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall all be free someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall live in peace someday.
Our closing words are by Marianne Williamson, and Congressman Lewis included them in his memoir. She writes, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others." Let's sing together our musical benediction, "There is a Love."
There is a love
Let's extinguish our chalice or candles, candle flames, with these words to embody the flame. We extinguish this chalice that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light our paths as we leave this place. May it guide our way until we are together again. Beloveds, stay in the struggle. You're in very, very good company. Within this room, Zoom room, and out in the world, there are so many warriors for justice, so many people committed to love, so many who hold their faith and potential for peace and unity deep and dear in their hearts. So keep the faith, stay in the struggle. I love you all. Have a good week.